Three identical sisters vanished without leaving a single footprint in the most unforgiving reaches of the Grand Canyon. And then, 3 years later, one of them emerged from the wilderness as if released from another realm, carrying a story that would unravel everything we believed about the canyon's hidden truths. The scream that shattered the stillness of the South Rim Visitor Center on March 15, 2012 came from a seasoned park ranger who thought he had witnessed every face of the canyon. Yet nothing had prepared Ranger Dale Morrison for the young woman standing before him, her clothes shredded and bleached by the sun, her dark hair tangled with dust, and her eyes reflecting a silence that felt older than time itself. She was the living echo of the missing posters that had lined his office for 3 long years. Because she was Zara Blackwood, one of the triplets who had disappeared in 2009 and been mourned as lost to the canyon forever. Zara, Nora, and Kira Blackwood had been bound together since their first breath. At 19, they chose to honor their bond with a pilgrimage through the Grand Canyon's remote backcountry, guided by courage, preparation, and a quiet sense that this journey mattered. Raised in Colorado, they were taught to respect the wilderness, not fear it, and their ambitious 5-day route was well within their skill. Their parents were to meet them at the final checkpoint. But on March 18, 2009, the sisters never arrived. What followed was one of the largest search efforts in the park's history, helicopters cutting the sky, rescue teams combing every ravine, every ridge, every shadowed trail. For 2 relentless weeks, the canyon yielded nothing. No backpacks. No footprints. No sign that 3 young women had ever walked its ancient paths. It was as if the desert had quietly claimed them. Despite GPS devices, emergency beacons, and careful planning, the sisters vanished without a trace. The case became a legend of mystery, eventually closed as a presumed fatality, though no bodies were ever found. Now, 3 years later, Zara Blackwood stood alive, yet unmistakably altered. Medical exams showed severe malnutrition, dehydration, and injuries shaped by brutal conditions. But what unsettled the doctors most was her mind. She spoke in broken pieces, her gaze drifting as if listening to something beyond the room. When asked about her sisters, tears filled her eyes and she whispered, "They're still down there. They're waiting." Trauma psychiatrist Dr. Amanda Cross was called in. Zara's account unfolded in fragments, underground chambers that should not exist, voices rising from the depths, and her sisters being taken somewhere she could not follow. Most disturbing of all, she insisted that only a few days had passed, not 3 years. Detective Ray Hutchkins, a veteran of Southwest missing person cases, led the investigation. He had seen survivors return after weeks or months, but never after years, and never in Zara's condition. Her clothes and injuries did not match a 3-year disappearance. Something about time itself felt distorted. Then came the turning point. In a moment of clarity, Zara described a hidden entrance near Hermit's Rest, masked by a rockfall that was never meant to be natural. On napkins, she sketched passages plunging far below the known cave systems. Against reason, Hutchkins followed her guidance, and found exactly what she had drawn. Behind carefully arranged stones lay a narrow opening, marked with tool scars and signs of recent construction. The passage descended steeply into darkness, a fusion of natural cave and deliberate design, bearing fresh footprints, some matching Zara's own boots. As the search team moved deeper, a quiet realization settled over them. The Grand Canyon was guarding a secret beneath its ancient layers, something intentionally hidden. And somewhere within those shadowed corridors, 2 young women were still waiting, chosen by fate, bound by mystery, and calling to be found. The search team, guided by Detective Hutchkins and reinforced by elite cave rescue specialists, stepped into a labyrinth that shattered every geological map ever drawn of the canyon. The tunnels were too smooth, too deliberate, their symmetry whispering of intention rather than accident. This was not a gift of nature alone, it was a place shaped by human will, carved with purpose and patience. 300 feet beneath the surface, the canyon offered its first confession. In a quiet chamber branching from the main passage, they found a small encampment, 3 sleeping bags arranged in a silent triangle, personal belongings scattered like relics of interrupted lives. Nora Blackwood's Colorado State University ID lay half-buried in the dust. Kira's empty water bottle, her name still visible in permanent marker, rested against the stone wall. The space felt recently abandoned, as though its occupants had been called away by something unseen. Dr. Sarah Chen, the geologist on the team, stood in awe and unease. The system plunged far deeper than any recorded formation, and the craftsmanship spoke of long-term vision. Tool marks etched into the walls told a story of years, perhaps decades, of relentless work. "This wasn't done by wanderers," she told Hutchkins quietly. "This is a deliberate project. Someone has been building a hidden world down here." They followed a central corridor that curved downward in a calculated spiral. The air remained unexpectedly clean, hinting at a concealed ventilation network. Emergency lights glowed along the tunnel, fed by generators whose distant hum pulsed like a mechanical heartbeat. This place was not abandoned, it was being sustained. Nearly 500 feet below ground, they entered a vast chamber transformed into a living compound. Sleeping quarters, a crude kitchen, and a workshop packed with mining equipment filled the space. One wall was covered in maps of the Grand Canyon, marked with red lines that wove a web across the landscape. Another wall carried the darkest revelation: photographs of young hikers, watched from afar, including telephoto images of the Blackwood sisters taken before they vanished. Hutchkins felt a chill settle into his bones. The sisters had not been lost. They had been chosen, studied, and taken. This was no accident of wilderness. It was a carefully orchestrated abduction, executed by someone who understood the canyon's hidden pathways and possessed the means to bend them to their will. The workshop revealed how such a secret empire could survive: industrial drills, controlled blasting equipment, and advanced ventilation systems lay ready for use. Scattered documents told the deeper truth: denied mining permits, rejected geological proposals, and years of correspondence with government agencies. Someone had sought legal access to the canyon's depths, and when refused, had descended into secrecy instead, building their own forbidden kingdom beneath the earth. The tunnels connected to at least 6 concealed surface entrances, allowing movement across the canyon without ever being seen. It was a network designed for watching, waiting, and taking. As the team moved farther in, unnatural sounds drifted through the darkness: machinery echoing, distant voices, and a faint, heartbreaking cry. They were coming from deeper still, beyond the limits of safe exploration. Dr. Chen's final discovery made the truth even heavier: the caves were not merely being used, they were still growing. Fresh drill marks and mineral samples revealed an active expansion, a search for something specific, something hidden in the ancient stone. And in that vast unseen world, the chosen were not finished speaking. At this depth, the ancient stone revealed veins of rare earth minerals, elements guarded by strict federal law and coveted beyond measure. When that truth settled into Detective Hutchkins, it struck him with the weight of revelation. This was never just about secrecy or forbidden excavation. The ones who ruled this hidden realm had turned missing hikers into living instruments of their will, binding them into forced service, using their wilderness skill to expand the tunnels and sustain the operation while keeping them erased from the surface world. The Blackwood sisters had not wandered into darkness by chance. They had been chosen, marked for their experience, their route, their strength, and their ability to survive where others could not. The evidence whispered that Zara had broken free from deeper within the complex, but her fractured mind carried the echo that her sisters remained below. The crying the team had heard was not imagination, it was the voice of the forgotten, those declared dead by the world above, yet still breathing in the depths of this hidden prison. As the team prepared to descend further, another truth emerged. A sophisticated radio system monitored Park Service frequencies, silently listening for years. The unseen architects of this place had always been one step ahead, tracking rescues, predicting searches, and slipping through shadows whenever danger drew near. What began as one woman's impossible return had become the unveiling of a decade-long shadow empire beneath one of America's most sacred landscapes. And somewhere in the unseen depths, Nora and Kira Blackwood were still waiting, along with countless others who had vanished into legend. Deeper still, the tunnels unfolded into something unimaginable. Nearly 800 feet below the surface, the passages opened into a vast cavern shaped into an underground city. Metal walkways and staircases rose through layered platforms where machines carved into the ancient rock, drawing precious elements from the canyon's hidden heart. But it was the living quarters that carried the deepest sorrow. Dozens of narrow cells were etched into the stone, each barely large enough for a human body. Some stood empty, others held the quiet testimony of survival: scattered belongings, thin bedding, and crude calendars carved into the walls by hands that refused to forget time. Hutchins stood off and stared at one cell where Nora had been cut deep into the rock, followed by a long tally of days that ended without explanation. In another, Kira appeared beside mathematical symbols and geological sketches. Even in captivity, the sisters had turned knowledge into light, seeking meaning inside the darkness. Then the radios erupted with warning from the surface. 2 more hidden entrances had been found. Fresh tracks. Vehicles fleeing only hours earlier. The keepers of this underworld had been alerted, and they were escaping. Urgency swept through the team. In the central work chamber, computers revealed the full design, detailed canyon maps, mineral extraction routes, and financial records proving millions in illegal trade to distant buyers who asked no questions. Most chilling were the files. Dossiers on dozens of hikers who had vanished over 15 years, faces, histories, evaluations of usefulness. This was not a crime of opportunity. It was a chosen harvest. The Blackwood sisters had not been taken at random. They were chosen for their geological training and the strength they carried in their bodies and spirits. Others had been selected for their engineering minds, their knowledge of explosives, or simply their endurance, those who could survive the crushing weight of the underground world. Dr. Chen's analysis revealed that the hidden operation was harvesting lithium, cobalt, and other rare earth elements essential to modern technology and renewable energy. The fortune buried in that stone was vast enough to justify the cruelty, the planning, and the long years of silence. Deep within the complex, the team uncovered a control chamber where surveillance screens glowed with live feeds from the canyon's busiest trails. For years, unseen eyes had watched, studied, and chosen. The tunnels were not just for hiding, they were arteries of movement, allowing the captors to emerge, strike, and vanish without a trace. The precision of the system spoke of something far greater than desperation. This was an organized, well-funded empire, built with intention and patience. As the search continued, signs of a hurried retreat appeared. Machinery sat abandoned mid-task. Computers hummed unattended. Personal items lay scattered like echoes of sudden fear. Yet Nora and Kira were nowhere to be found. The chosen had been moved, carried deeper into the unknown. The revelation came with a narrow transport tunnel that opened into a concealed loading dock carved into the canyon wall. Fresh tire tracks cut through the dust, leading to a camouflaged exit that connected to service roads used by park crews. The keepers of the underworld had escaped, and they had taken their prisoners with them. Hutchins felt the urgency ignite within him. Alerts spread across the southwest. Roadblocks formed. Airports and borders were sealed with watchful eyes. But the captors had listened to every rescue call for years, they had already slipped beyond reach. What followed became one of the largest manhunts in regional history. Federal agents and local authorities across 4 states joined in a single purpose, uncovering a web that stretched far beyond the canyon into Nevada, Utah, and New Mexico. The turning point arrived through Zara. As healing began to touch her fractured mind, memory slowly returned. In a quiet session with Dr. Cross, a name surfaced from the shadows: Marcus Thorne. The name opened a hidden door. Thorne had once been a respected mining engineer before his fall from grace, exposed for falsifying environmental reports and vanishing from public life. His knowledge of underground construction made him the perfect architect of this forbidden world. Financial records revealed him as the unseen hand behind everything: offshore accounts, secret payments, and a network of accomplices who selected, watched, and delivered the chosen. His reach was vast, his design meticulous. The investigation uncovered how the victims were marked. Operatives placed in gear shops, guiding services, and contractor roles quietly gathered plans and routes. The Blackwood sisters had been chosen the moment they purchased specialized equipment in Denver, their destiny sealed long before they stepped into the canyon. Zara's memories, though broken, became a lantern in the darkness. She spoke of a hierarchy, of Thorne at the summit, and of a second hidden sanctuary where the most valuable prisoners were taken when danger drew too close. And in that unseen place, the chosen were still waiting. Through tireless decoding of financial trails and intercepted whispers, the veil over the second sanctuary was finally lifted. FBI analysts followed a chain of shadowed transactions and equipment shipments to a lonely ranch in southeastern Utah, nearly 200 miles from the Grand Canyon. Purchased through a shell company bound to Thorne's network, the land hid a secret beneath its soil, an underground world never approved, never recorded, never meant to be seen. At dawn on March 22, 2012, 7 days after Zara walked out of the canyon, the chosen hour arrived. Tactical teams encircled the ranch as helicopters hovered above, guardians of the awakening. Though the surface lay silent and abandoned, thermal vision revealed the truth: life moving below the earth, waiting to be freed. What followed was both deliverance and sorrow. Beneath the ranch, agents found 12 souls who had vanished over 8 long years, living echoes of the forgotten. Among them were Nora and Kira Blackwood, alive, but forever changed by 3 years in the depths. They had been forced to shape stone with their knowledge, their hands turned into tools for a hidden empire. When the sisters were reunited, the world wept. Nora and Kira had been told Zara had died trying to escape, a lie woven to keep hope from rising. Her survival had been concealed so that no other chosen would dare to believe in freedom. Marcus Thorne and 6 of his lieutenants were captured as they prepared to flee toward Mexico, planning a new underworld beyond the reach of justice. Evidence seized revealed blueprints for an even greater abyss, a future built on silence and suffering. The rescued carried deep wounds of the mind and spirit. Years of isolation, forced labor, and calculated psychological breaking had scarred them beyond measure. Healing would take time, patience, and light. The investigation continued like a cleansing fire. Analysts uncovered more than $50 million in illegal profit, a fortune born from darkness. When Thorne stood before the world in court, unrepentant and cold, he called his crimes innovation. But the voices of the rescued shattered that illusion. Nora spoke of endless shifts in lethal tunnels, of fear used as a weapon. Kira revealed how Thorne studied each soul, turning their fears into chains, rewarding obedience, crushing resistance, isolating the strong until their will nearly vanished. Yet they endured. They survived. And in their survival, the chosen transformed suffering into truth, and darkness into awakening. The investigation revealed a truth heavier than anyone had imagined. The hidden network had been responsible for at least 37 disappearances across the Southwest over 15 long years. Some of the chosen were released once their usefulness had faded, their voices silenced by fear and trauma. Others never returned, lost to mining accidents or the merciless conditions below, their bodies surrendered to the deep shafts of the underworld. Dr. Amanda Cross, who guided the Blackwood sisters through their healing, testified to the lasting scars carried by the soul. Zara's escape had only been possible when a cave-in fractured the security systems, opening a narrow window of grace. What followed was a 3-year pilgrimage through unmapped darkness, surviving on hidden water veins, small creatures, and the quiet strength that refused to surrender. Geological testimony revealed the full weight of the devastation. Dr. Sarah Chen explained how the illegal excavations had destabilized the canyon itself, placing its ancient foundations at risk of collapse for generations to come. The cost to heal the land would exceed $100 million, a reminder that every wound to the earth echoes far beyond the moment it is made. Financial records exposed an international web of silent investors who traded conscience for profit, fueling the extraction of rare earth minerals for electronics, renewable energy, and military technology. When the final judgment came, Marcus Thorne was sentenced to life without parole, his lieutenants receiving decades behind bars. The judge named the operation for what it was: one of the most ruthless and methodical crimes in American history, built on the sacrifice of human lives and the violation of sacred land. The Blackwood sisters began a long return to wholeness, their story becoming a living symbol of resilience. Survival experts later studied Zara's journey in awe, how she navigated the unknown, endured with almost nothing, and became the spark that freed 11 others and dismantled a decade of darkness. From their awakening came transformation. National parks changed their protocols. New systems were born to protect the lost, to watch the unseen, to ensure that the hidden could never again thrive in silence. The Grand Canyon complex was sealed, its secrets laid to rest, yet its message remained. Even in the most protected places, shadows can grow. But so can light. Today, the 3 sisters walk forward as guardians of hope, advocates for the missing, and witnesses to the truth that the chosen are not defined by what breaks them, but by what they rise from. Their story is a living testament: when darkness chooses you, you can still choose the light.